Hello and welcome to this version update tour. I'm Matt, a lead developer here at RackForms and owner, and I want to give you a quick tour of build 887, 6, and 5 and talk about some of the goodies that are contained within. So let's get started with calendar customization and callbacks. So RackForms has long had the ability to do a lot of really complex interactions with the calendar, but we've really taken it to the next level. So there are two things that are mainly new here. The first is we've added some API calls that make date logic a lot easier. So specifically, we have date format and add days, and these are two built-in functions in RackForms now that allow your forms to do things like add days to the current date and then format them so they work with the calendar. Now, that seems a little bit esoteric at first, but you can do some really cool things. So for example, what if I want to show a calendar that only has 5 days in the future as the shown dates? Well, I can do that now. Basically, this calendar will only show that. So whatever the current date is, it adds 5 to it, and those are the valid days. However, we've taken it one step further, and we've also added calendar callbacks. So this is really neat. What it basically allows us to do is use this brand new section, calendar callback code right here, to actually write code that does interesting things for us. So in this case, when I select a date, if it's 5 days in the future, I want to show this field. And you can see now that with this calendar callback, we can now hook into when a user has selected a date and make intelligent decisions based on that. So that wasn't 5 days in the future, this one is, so now I show this field. So we're really excited about that. It opens up a lot of really interesting logic. Okay, this next one is really cool. Let's say I'm building a form that has a lot of conditional code in it. Before this new feature, what you'd essentially have to do is you would, let's say I was working on this field right here, I would have to basically scroll down to conditional processing, write my conditional code, select the next field, and then scroll around to find conditional process again, so on and so forth. It was a really slow process to do that. Well, no longer. In RackForms, we have the long overdue feature of I can now undock and dock menus as needed. So all I have to do is click this little button right here. I'm going to move this guy over here, and now conditional processing is always shown for that particular field. I've been using this a lot for doing things like this. So let's say I have a select menu, and I have some of its custom select item list items right here. I can simply now show that so that anytime I select a different select menu, that list is going to show for it. If you're a long-term RackForms user, you are already seeing how this is going to save you time. And if you're thinking about becoming a RackForms user, this is a huge time saver right here. This allows you to customize your interface so that only those items that you want are showing. And it's going to make doing this type of work much easier now. I can kind of build my interface over here as I need it. So really excited about that. And of course, we can dock these back down here at any time. Okay, so the next class of feature that we have here is going to be of use for doing really complicated forms that you save and return later. So we have a brand new button. It's called the Save button. You can actually find it under Buttons Save button. And what this guy essentially allows us to do is if we have a form that uses save and return later, and specifically either IP-based or session-based, what this is going to essentially do for us is it's going to allow us to save the form state without actually leaving the page. So it used to be that in order for us to save a page, we had to leave the current page that we're on. Well, no longer. With the Save button, all I have to do is click it, and our form data is saved. This is really nice for more complex forms like text collection or preparation software where we don't want to actually leave the current page. We just want to give the users the ability to save their current form progress. So it's a really high-end feature, and I think a lot of users who are doing save and return later are going to get a huge amount of use out of that. Finally, the last major feature that we have are bucket repeaters can now be added and removed via API calls. Again, this one's a little bit more specific here, but it's really interesting. So specifically here, if you load up your newest version of RackForms and look for the bucket repeater API calls job right here, you're going to see that I have this form which has a bucket repeater, but now allows me to enter the number of rows that I want as opposed to just deleting them. Now, I will say this is actually still a beta feature right here. It actually doesn't support us actually reloading the form. So you can notice a little bit of strange behavior in here. But the idea is when this feature is complete, it's going to allow us to basically say how many of these repeated fields I want as opposed to actually using the controls to type them in. And this is a really powerful feature for doing things like I want to have a certain number control how many repeated bucket items that I have. It's really, really handy to have this, and we're excited to have it in as a feature. Again, it's in beta right now, but already if we just have a single-use form, it's incredibly, incredibly useful. Finally, I just want to take a quick gander at 3 new features that we've added. So one thing that a lot of form users will often do is you'll toggle the hidden status of a form field. Again, this got a little bit cumbersome because of how much scrolling you had. Well, we now have a new shortcut for this, so Control H is going to toggle a field's visibility, so it's very, very easy to do that now. We can now filter a load a save job list. This is actually quite handy for me. I have dozens and dozens of unit tests that I run, and it was actually start getting a little bit difficult to find those, so I can now just type in and filter jobs right here. In addition to that, the filtering list has gotten a lot smarter. So it used to be that in our load example job list, we would only filter off of the first word in an item. We now just filter all words. So if I just type in SQL, we're going to get any job that has SQL as its job name right here. So it should be much, much easier to find jobs that are relevant to the query that you're typing in. So that is a quick look at those 3 versions, Build 87, 887, 86, and 85. Build 885 is already out. 886 is going to be coming in the next few days, so probably Friday, I believe that would be the 8th or 9th of April. So we should have that out. And of course, we always look forward to your feedback and comments. If there's a feature that you want or something that you've seen here today that that really makes you happy, please let me know. Always love that feedback. And as always, thanks for watching, and please stay in touch.